Good. Lots of people jumping in, which is great. Hey, Coombs.
Hey, Colin. Colin?
Yeah, I got you.
Yo. How's things there?
Yeah, good.
I didn't know it was whiskey and chocolate.
Neither did I. Yeah.
I just saw that now.
There's chocolate in here.
I think it's, I just, you guys clearly didn't read the contents of the box.
Apologies to all our customers. It appears as if we're not very good at reading instructions.
I was told to not open this box or look at it, or I was told to put it aside.
On pain of death.
But that was by your wife, Brian.
Yeah.
She knows what you like with whiskey. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Ross.
Hey, Roz.
Good. I'm at Tash at the moment, actually.
Is it load shedding or water shedding that's made you, or
all of the above?
Some new type of shedding.
All of the above.
Shedding.
In fact, I mean, I speaking of instructions, Coombs, I was reading the instructions, and there's these chocolates, which I also didn't know about. But then I see that you need glasses of water, which is obviously problematic for you guys in Joburg.
We don't drink whiskey whiskey without water.
Listen,
That's evil. That is
brave talk coming from Cape Town. Hey, Cape Town's experienced quite a few more day zeros than Joburg has, if memory serves.
Because they've got water now.
That's. But isn't it? Rumors are that it's raining in Joburg. Like, is that true?
It's gonna start out. Yeah,
it was a light drizzle. Thunder like crazy, and then this tiny light drizzle.
No, it's coming down now in Greenstone.
Oh, is it? Okay, cool.
Ooh, these chocolates look. Phew. These look nice. That looks proper. Out of chocolate here.
Okay, we've got still getting some good numbers in. I think I'm going to wait just 2 or 3 more minutes, and then we'll kick off properly. In the meantime, you guys in Joburg can put your glasses outside, put it out the window or out the door, and just get some water in there.
Distilled water. Hello, James.
Yeah, hi, James. And can I ask the Turrito team to just also keep an eye on the chat, and feel free to interrupt me or let me know if anything's going on there. Mel is definitely going to be doing that, but I think more eyes. Feel free to type in the chat as well. Mel, how are you feeling about numbers?
I think we're at 37. I think we can kick off.
Yeah, okay.
Cool.
I thought so too. Thank you. And guys, thanks for those of you who are here and being prompt. And this is, we're very, very happy to host you in an event like this. We've had, I think this is our 3rd one. We've stumbled a couple of times. We are improving all of the time. No matter what happens and no matter how the events go, though, the feedback's been phenomenal. So we really appreciate if you do have any feedback for us at the end of the evening, by all means, let us know. I mean, as much as we'd love to do some physical, some on-site sessions like this, the virtual ones are proving to be quite popular. And that's also feedback we'd love to hear. If you think this is fun, but you'd prefer to do something in person, that'd be great. We'd love to do stuff like that. And then I also want to welcome. We've got a bunch of probably half the room is existing customers of ours, and half the room is brand new customers or potential future customers. And we obviously welcome all of you. Just some housekeeping. I think housekeeping is a lot easier with these virtual events because I don't need to tell you where the bathroom is or the bar or what the bartender's name is. Like you're on your own. but please do keep yourself on mute. We're joining this as an absolutely open team session. You guys are all very familiar with it, I'm sure. And we're not going to like lock down permissions or anything. Just keep yourself on mute if you're not talking. And it's great. A lot of you have your cameras on, which we really appreciate. You don't have to if you don't want to. I think we'll keep our cameras on, those of us who are presenting, certainly, but it's totally up to you, whatever you're comfortable with. The evening is, quick intro by me. I'm going to hand over to David Brooks, who's joining us from Cloudmania. Cloudmania is Turrito's de facto cloud provider, global provider, huge presence throughout Africa. And very, very deeply skilled in a whole bunch of the Microsoft subsets and licensing types and cloud areas, public licensing, Office 365, Microsoft 365, Azure, the works. And David is in particular a great guy and very, very skilled. And he's going to be helping us with this sort of the meat of this presentation or this event, which, in fact, no offense to you, Sean, but the secrets of Microsoft 365. There's not enough time to go through a fraction of them, but we've chosen a few that we think are relevant and interesting. I think it's also worth pointing out that a lot of the people in the room are technical. So we've got IT managers, we've got CIOs, we've got CTOs, we've got people in charge of IT budgets. So it is going to be a little bit, we're going to show real world examples. We're going to be logging on to actual tenants and showing some skills. We're definitely not doing technical deep dives. That's mostly for me because I'm probably the least technical person in the room, but it should be interesting. There's a bunch of stuff here that you've probably never heard of or seen. After that, we hand over to Sean from Whiskey Rebels, and he's going to be doing the fun part of the evening. You should all have your whiskey packs in front of you, and there are some instructions you need to have a glance at. I'm sure he'll give us more information, and he's going to talk us through the whiskey tasting, which I'm definitely looking forward to, and certainly I've never done one virtually. In terms of what we're trying to achieve here, this is very much about what, like Turrito, this is a part of our DNA. Like a lot of the products and services we sell could be considered commoditized. Connectivity, Office 365, Azure. You can buy them directly from suppliers. You can get them from competitors of ours. Our unique selling proposition is that we try and add skills and experience and knowledge, and a whole bunch of it is usually free. Like if you're getting Office 365 from us or Azure, generally you can speak to senior engineers, you can pick up a phone, you can log a ticket, and someone's going to get back to you quickly, and there's no charges. Like that's just part of what we do. We want to do more events like this, and that goes back to getting some feedback from you. We'd love some topics. We'd love to hear about the format, and this is sure you can buy these products and services elsewhere, but we think we add a whole bunch of value on top, and it's often going to cost you less or the same. We're also very, very we understand deeply that we need to build trust with you as an existing customer or a potential customer, and that doesn't come for free. We've got to prove it. So these types of events and maybe some of the things that come out of it, and just working with you or helping you in your own environment, that's a big thing for us. We want to build trust. We want to earn your trust. So without further ado, I'm going to start handing over. I'm encouraging you guys to interrupt politely or impolitely, and put questions in the text if you want to. Raise your virtual hand if something pops up. At the end of the session, we are also going to encourage you to ask questions or bring up your own personal experience. We may have talked about some things in Office 365 that you've seen or that you disagree with, make a little note, and we'll come back to it at the end, where we're going to have a bit of a more informal just discussion if people are keen. And we have done that previously, and it's been brilliant. So, is there anything else my colleagues would like to add? Have I missed anything before I hand over to David? All good. Great stuff. Thank you. David, without further ado, take it away.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Colin. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining and giving us this time. I've spent a lot of time with Turrito, and it really is a phenomenal partner to Cloudmania, and we see the value that they're putting across. When we go through the deck today, and we'll talk about some of the hidden powers, I'm sure that there are a number of you who will be well aware of a few of these options. But what I really hope is that everyone gets at least one or two that they can take away and really go and use in their organization tomorrow. And that's really a theme we wanted to track here. This is not a pushing you down a big project path or looking to sell you a specific product. It's more, here are some actionable items, go into the office, pick one that really makes sense for your business and roll it out tomorrow and see the impact it can have across the organization. So to get things going, the first topic we are touching on is Poppea. Now, it's a term that can create a lot of dread across a number of us, and there's been a lot of apprehension around it. And I think that Microsoft's main approach into Poppea was to remove that apprehension by giving you a very structured way to go through and check certain boxes. Ultimately, Poppea and GDPR and PCI and all of these various compliance standards are checkbox exercises of, are we compliant to a vast range of different regulations and subsets. So what I want to quickly show you is the actual portal where Microsoft makes this a very simplified process. So rather than you having to read a regulation, translate that into an action that you need to do in your environment, there really are step-by-step processes that can help you achieve these various standards. So if I jump straight into the compliance portal for Microsoft, so don't worry about links and various portals. What I've done is put together a list of everything that I mentioned and the links to it. So we'll send that out to you after this so you can have quick access through to everything we're talking about. So within the compliance portal, I've come straight into the various policies and filtered by South Africa. You'll see that if I remove this filter quickly, there are, I think it's around, let's just open that up. There's around 700 different compliance standards. Now, not all of them relate to us. 735, there you go. So really anything you could possibly imagine, from the ISOs to the various industry standards like the FSI for financial, there really are a number of standards. Now, going back to South Africa, you'll see that there are a number that relate specifically to us. So whether that's the promotion of access to information, Poppea is the one that's really a hot topic at the moment. So one that we wanted to highlight. But I think the importance here is that while Poppea is absolutely covered, there are a number of other aspects that can be taken in here. So I actually just want to jump into Poppea quickly and show you that as part of these assessment templates, they really take you through each and every aspect of becoming Poppea compliant. Now, if there were a product one could buy off the shelf and become compliant overnight, I think you'd be sitting on a multi-billion rand idea. Unfortunately, it doesn't exist. And really the story of compliance is a continual journey of achieving those standards, checking those boxes, making sure that they remain in place. If we just start popping some of these open, it takes you down to the act reference and exactly what you need to do for each of these. Not only are there the controls that get measured, but there are actual actionable items in here that you can go through in that continuous journey to being properly compliant. Now, where I think the true value of this tool really sits is, one, in absolutely gaining that compliance, achieving that standard that has been set out, but equally as regulations change and as they get interpreted and as we see cases go through the courts, these regulations are going to be updated. And I think there's a huge value in not only running the assessments, but having them continually checked so that as changes are made into the regulations or the standards, they are quickly highlighted to you. And again, it goes back to you not having to go into a regulatory document, which are interesting reads, I'll give you that, but trying to understand them and apply them become a very different game. And that's where these portals really have that value to go, what are the actionable items? What do I need to do? Let's talk retention periods. Let's go through this list, check the boxes, and achieve that. And it really becomes a very powerful tool to not only achieve compliance, but maintain compliance. So I think that's the key here, is that maintenance over time. And as I mentioned, there are the South African specific regulations and POPI and consumer protection. And then there are hundreds of various industry related, geography related, multiple different standards that take you through this exact process of achieving and maintaining. So jumping back to our deck, next one up. So really with that POPI compliance and others, an incredibly powerful tool that you can start using right away. Now, the next one we want to go on to, and you'll see that there is a trend that will follow, following compliance and security. It really is an incredibly important topic, and we see it becoming more and more important as we go on. So we touch on Azure Defender and really Microsoft Defender as a whole, being an inbuilt set of tools into many of the licenses and platforms and pieces of software that we use today. So rather than having that continual third-party access and then going to separate interfaces to review, Microsoft has gone out of their way to move into that space of having inbuilt security. It gives you that holistic view from your 365 licenses and your users all the way through to an Azure environment and the specific controls that would live within that environment. So that holistic view becomes incredibly important. And then with the reporting side, we really see the value in being made aware of incidents as they happen, getting an understanding for what's going on in your environment. I think security at the moment is not only about prevention, but it's about understanding and being able to respond to incidents as they happen. To give you a quick view into the security side, so we came from compliance, we're now jumping into security.microsoft, and I will again send out the link to this. You'll see that there are a number of different tools that fall under the security portfolio. So from your Azure Active Directory, which we're going to touch on in a couple of slides, Purview is that compliance page that we just had a look at. We have advanced threat protection. The one that I want to show you quickly is Defender for Cloud, which again becomes an incredibly powerful tool of not only regulatory compliance, as we saw, relating to the organization and your processes and all of the standards that you're putting into place across your users and how they operate. But this takes us into your cloud environment to ensure that not only are our organizations operating in a compliant manner, but the platforms that we build to support these organizations are also being built to match those compliance standards. And again, it takes you through very actionable controls and actions that will take you down that path of checking boxes. And it's a traffic light of, are we compliant, are we not? And a very simple way to get an immediate view of if we've made a change to the environment, have we left something open? If we have re-architected, we've done anything that has brought on new resources, do those resources match the compliance standards we've set out for our existing environments? So it becomes a very easy control and place to come and check. Now, this is a very empty subscription. Again, POPI compliance, I can't show you too much of these random environments, but it gives you that clear view of yes, compliant, no, not. And within these are actionable items. You can go into the specific details and see exactly what needs to be done to rectify that. So it takes away that guesswork of now having to manually go and check each of these standards.
David, sorry, Vota has a question
Yes,
on the
please.
Poppy compliance. Does it need a premium license?
So certain of the assessments do need a premium license. You'll see in the table there are included licenses and there are premium ones. So I believe the Poppy one is, well, the main Poppy one is part of the premium, but there are a number of others that sit in your included licensing. And again, it depends on what other licensing you have in place. So if you have E5 as an example, it starts to include a lot of the functionality.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
David, can I chime in as well?
Yes,
Just
please.
on Popia, I wasn't going to, but Voter opened the door. Is there some way of tracking your progress? Like, you know, I know that there is a compliance score you can get in the portal somewhere, but can you track your progress against a specific goal like Popia or GDPR?
Yes, absolutely. So if I just quickly jump to the report, if I go back to assessment templates, each one of these templates is specifically built against that standard. So the Popia one we were in, every action there that gets checked off as you complete them relates specific to Popia. Now, is there going to be overlap? Absolutely. So, you know, if you've completed GDPR, there's a good chance that the vast majority of Popia is going to be checked, and likewise. So as you go into each one of these assessment templates, the items within that template relate specifically to that compliance standard. Absolutely, there'll be overlap, but you can then track that if we go into one. These items, when you actually proceed through the template, will become checked off as your actions get checked off, and then the various controls become, again, red or green as you track your progress. Cool. Thanks, Colin. Right. Now, SharePoint has become a tool, or not become a tool, but has been a tool for many, many years that we've consumed across organizations for multiple tasks. It's been everything from a file server to an intranet site. And really what we are seeing is the functionality and the usability of SharePoint becoming more of an actual tool to be consumed than a platform that you land on. So as we start to use SharePoint, there are a number of templates that have actually been built in to not only simplify the deployment of a SharePoint site for a specific task, but automate many of the steps along the way. And you'll see that in this topic and the one we're going to cover next, we really start to touch on an aspect of user orchestration or people orchestration. For many years, we've been talking about how do we automate. We want to automate everything and make things happen in the background. And I think that a key topic that often gets overlooked is the orchestration of user activities. And whenever we see a user or group of users repeating a task that has specific outcomes or specific standards, orchestrating that becomes an important step because it gives you that trackable, repeatable process that has gates in place where there need to be gates. You know, we can have sign-off or compliance gates. There can be steps where checks are made against other systems. So really the orchestration of human processes is becoming as important as the automation of a lot of the back-end processes that we've been working on. So when we talk about using Microsoft as a onboarding site and bringing staff on, we know it's an incredibly painful process for a number of organizations. I think we probably all have had an experience in our time arriving in an organization for the first time and not having a great first day. That can have a huge impact on that employee's view of the company long term. So by simplifying this, we improve the experience that employee has. We improve our security controls because we're now going through those compliance standards again and to making sure that they check for the new users. And this is all done through a pre-configured template. Now, we mentioned staff onboarding as an example. There are multiple templates, whether it is project tracking or incident response. There really are a number of fantastically useful templates. And I think more powerful than the templates is the ability to really customize and build out any process within SharePoint and have it trackable, measurable, and visible to the business. Now, that goes straight into my next topic of using Power Automate. So this is another fantastic platform that lives within the Microsoft ecosystem. And Power Automate gives you the ability to build very simple applications without going through massive development cycles and bringing in hugely expensive resources. Users in the business, so non-IT users in the business can actually go through and start to create applications in almost a drag and drop manner. Now, document approvals is a fantastic example because it plays a step in a number of other processes, whether that is a sales process that requires a document approval at a point, whether it's a payment process. Document approvals in and of itself is incredibly powerful, but it also plays a role in many of the other processes that we talk about. And if we talk about employee onboarding that we did in the SharePoint aspect, a very powerful tool within that SharePoint process is the Microsoft Power Automate. And again, this goes back to a story that really builds out around this ecosystem, in that whatever we bring into the ecosystem and whatever Microsoft launches, there is incredible integration. And I think that integration leads to the platforms having a lot more value than the sum of their various parts. In itself, document approval, great, awesome tool. As part of a larger process, as part of an existing ecosystem, it becomes even more valuable and even more critical to our organizations. Now, this is a very special topic to me because I love data and I love going through data sets and spitting out useful information. And I think we've lived in a world for many years, and we probably will for many years to come, that is very heavily based in Excel. And whether we have databases sitting in the background and we're extracting that information, I think we've all been in a place where we have generated and sent out Excel reports on a weekly or monthly basis. And really it becomes a repetitive process of extract information, format in a specific way, send out to users. Now, that has worked. It will work for a number of years. I don't think we're ever going to get rid of that process. But what Power BI and SharePoint List really bring to you is the ability to bring that type of reporting. So if you have regular repeatable reporting, it brings it into an interface that does a lot of the calculation and manipulation of the data, as well as then the presentation of that data to users in a format that they can make business decisions based off of. So if we think of taking Excel and PowerPoint and merging them together, we get close to what Power BI becomes to the business, but it really becomes more than that, in that the reports that we build can be updated automatically in the background, whether that is once a day, once an hour. You can set those intervals. So it's not a weekly report that has been processed and sent out, and by the time it hits an inbox, it's probably already past its due date. Power BI reports give you that point in time refreshed view of exactly what's happening in whatever environment's data you are now presenting. So I pulled out a quick Power BI demo now. I'm sure some of you have played with Power BI. If you have, I'm hoping you love it. I know I do. It becomes massively useful. So without going into any of the data, it's really just a representation. Instead of having an Excel spreadsheet that showed you a bunch of numbers with a list of countries or regions next to them, you start to get an interactive view where if I want to know exactly what's happening in North America, I can click on that and have my numbers and my charts updated. So it really becomes more than a PowerPoint view and more than Excel, because it's actually interactive and you can drill down and go through reports to do some incredible things. So whether that's mapping it geographically, showing it as visible data, because a lot of our users really want to consume that visible and graphical data. But we know for the financial guys, they always love a table. So the ability to change up those formats on the fly and give our users the data in the format that they require becomes incredibly powerful. So Power BI is a tool that I think we should all be looking at, and how do we consume it to not only take data and present it, but present it in such a way that our users can make the most benefit out of it. And I think that's the key to all of this is we're storing and generating and gathering more data than ever before. The ability to present that back to the business is becoming more and more important. And to do it timelessly, refreshed, and in an easy format is incredibly powerful. Now, one last little tip that I'll mention is there are execs out there who love their reports. Power BI has an app, and you can actually convert all of your reports to have a mobile-friendly version. So if you want to give an executive team an on-the-go view into projects or financials or whatever that data is that you're reporting to them, they can have it on their phone in a Power BI app in a regularly updated format that they can drill through at any point. So a really powerful tool, and I think incredibly underutilized at the moment.
Hey, David, sorry. So we've got
Yes.
some questions in the chat.
Fire away.
So, Lynette, I don't know if you saw the answer that Colin gave. We can absolutely provide training on SharePoint and Automate. And then some interesting ones. We use M files and its built-in workflow function. How does that compare? I'm not sure if we can answer that.
I would love to do a little bit of digging and give you a proper answer. But
Yeah,
yeah,
awesome. Thank
cool.
you. And then there's one other one. Would it be possible to assist with syntax we get stuck on in writing DAX for Power BI?
So
I hope I asked that right.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, no, I got you. DAX functions are
Cool.
a joy to all of us who play in Power BI. So yeah, I think within the Turrito team, reach out and we have Power BI experts within Cloudmania who would be happy to assist with that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. Brilliant. Let's crack on. Are we doing okay for time?
Let me just jump in because there's a couple of questions here which are sort of related, and absolutely. So we've got actually a specific team that handles Power BI and SharePoint and Power Automate. And we're absolutely able to do the training. We're also able to build, like some of our customers just prefer to have one report built because it's a repeatable, David, to your point, it's a common report, it's repeatable, it's the same data. Those types of reports, we can actually just build it for you and let it run. And then in terms of the question about M files, and David, I sort of want to get clarity on this. Is Power Automate built in with a lot of the Microsoft licensing, or is it a separate license? Because if it's built in with Business Premium or some of the common licenses, then you could probably get that automation ability for free, basically, instead of relying on a third-party app, which is going to cost you money.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd love to look at those processes. So you do get certain functionality included in your licensing. There are some premium functions, but if we can look at what that process looks like, there may be an absolute saving there if it is included in your current licensing. I think I scared Colin off, but we'll crack on.
There's just one more. Can
Power
BI? I think the answer is yes, but I don't want to assume. Can Power BI be used in Dynamics 365 to pull reports from?
Absolutely. So yeah, Dynamics becomes well, the same data repositories that you're using for Dynamics can be referenced by your Power BI and presented how you would like it presented. So they play very well together.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Cool. Are we good on Power BI? It's my favorite topic. We could spend the rest of the hour on this. So
Vota's got his hand up.
yes, Vota.
How's it, David? Yeah, listen, so we use Power BI extensively. We design everything. It's, from management accounts to procurement to, technical from an NCR perspective and customer complaints is absolutely brilliant. But mostly we do connectivity to our SQL Server, which store most of our data. It makes it quite simple, straightforward. But I think one of your slides showed that, there we have SharePoint lists. Just elaborate more on that. I've seen it quite a lot of times, but I don't know how to. What is it all about? No idea.
So SharePoint lists is a very interesting tool that really gives you functionality of gathering and storing data that crosses slightly into presenting the data. So not quite at the Power BI level where you've got the graphical drill throughs and maps and all the great functionality. It will allow you to present lists, really, as the name says. So if you are gathering responses to a form or a survey, it's a great place to store those responses. You could do asset tracking. Anytime that you are storing lists of information or tables of information that don't quite require a full SQL database, and that would be useful to be graphically visible to users, then SharePoint lists kind of fills that gap. I know we all love storing our data in SQL and in all these platforms. When you need a list that your everyday user can access on the fly, SharePoint lists works fantastically for that.
Okay, cool. I'll just I'll maybe send you some or contact you directly. Just how does SharePoint list? Because I've never used it before.
Yeah, more than happy.
From a SQL perspective, we have a lot of tools where we can integrate using VBA and all that various things to collect and update and amend data. But I mean, if there's a SharePoint list like you mentioned here, and I've seen it before, don't know how to use it, and that will streamline, user interactions. Then yeah, I'd like to explore that option. So great, thank you.
Amazing. I'm sure that Turrito will be in touch, and we're more than happy to set up that session. We'll work through it together.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Cool. So again, and this topic touches on the integration of these various Microsoft platforms, and Azure Active Directory is a phenomenal example, because ultimately, once you enter this ecosystem, whether it's for a handful of 365 licenses or any time that a user gets created in the Microsoft ecosystem, you effectively become an Azure customer, because most of that, most if not all of that user management is run in Azure Active Directory. So if you are a 365 customer and you've never touched Azure before, if you were to log into the Azure portal, you won't have any subscriptions or access to other platforms, but you will be able to go to your Azure Active Directory and view your users. So what this really means, and what the power of this is when we talk about running Automate or running SharePoint, or even moving into workloads into Azure, a big part of assessing and setting up new platforms and new applications is how do we give our users access, and how do we maintain security of these platforms that we are distributing. Azure AD gives you a phenomenal tool that is not only utilized across the Microsoft suite, so your SharePoint, your email, everything is one login. It also is able to be integrated into many other third-party platforms. So through single sign-on and various other methods, we can use that AD as that singular credential, which means that we don't have users with 10 passwords and they start writing them down. Let's all have a little cringe there and then move on. Written down passwords, multiple accounts. It has that inherent functionality of multi-factor authentication. You can go in and start to log and trace all of the interactions that happen with your AD through the reporting either APIs or interfaces. So while Azure Active AD is often seen as one of the kind of simple base products, a lot of our 365 base, or all of our 365 base, is an Azure customer through AD today, and the ability to leverage that as a secure method to deploy and run services and give your users access to the services that you do deploy is incredibly powerful. So Azure AD is a phenomenal tool, and again, I think not only does it empower the Microsoft ecosystem, whatever that may be, it also then empowers everything else that your users are accessing, and single sign-on and the security behind that is becoming incredibly important. A lot of the security cases that we see going on in South Africa and across the continent are not people going into the back end of systems and getting through firewalls. It's pure user access or users not maintaining passwords, or it's generally always linked back to a user fault, not a system fault. So as much time as we spend on securing our systems and building big bad firewalls, our users become points of failure, and Azure Active Directory has incredible tools built in to make that as safe as possible. So you have that singular pane of glass into all of your users access wherever they are. Another little, just a great one that this enables is going back to user onboarding. If you have singular sign-on through your Azure AD, if a user were to leave and you need to remove that user, you're not having to log into 10 disparate systems and remove access. You remove them once, they no longer have access to any critical business data. So another useful aspect to having that singular platform for user access.
David, we've got another question from Voter, and then I've got one in the chat for you.
Oh, Voter, far
away. Sorry, guys, David. I don't want to take too much time.
No, please
Just
do.
regarding so we have a hybrid system. So we have a local AD, and then obviously we sync that with I think it's Azure AD Sync little application. We sync it to the cloud. I mean, we have got MFA fully integrated to our systems. We have app permissions into OnKey Pragma, which is the asset management system, works quite well. So we've done quite a lot of work there. Just one question, and my current MSP is not giving me an answer. Is if I change a password on Azure, which I allow my users to do, currently it's not drilling down back to my local AD. Is that a common feature? What is the issue with that? I mean, why can't I have bi-directional password changing request, or I allow the user to change their password for obvious reasons?
Yeah.
So why is that not drilling, or do you guys know why it's not drilling down back to my local AD? So our policy is we always create our users on our local AD. That's synced then up to the cloud, and we have all our functionality from a Azure perspective and Office 365. So, but that is just a question I have, which is problematic for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are a number of causes, but there's also a number of ways that it can be rectified. So what I would love to do is just set up some time and go through all of that. I mean, there's a phenomenal team from Turrito that will also jump on. I mean, I've been on some calls with some AD pros. So yeah, definitely something that can be solved. I think it may take a bit of time now. So yeah, let's set that up and we'll jump on that and get it fixed for you.
Awesome. Thanks, David. And then there's does Office 365 have a password vault for company passwords? And they've also commented that they've added, this is from James. Whenever we become aware of a phishing email or similar, we send out a company email to remind our users of the risks and to make them familiar with the types of attacks. I don't know if that's related, but yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. So I will find out on the password side. I have a identity and password experts. I will find out and absolutely let you know. And then on the sorry, just remind me of the second part. I really had something I wanted to say and I've just blanked.
I think it's about the phishing testing.
The
tools.
phishing, yes.
Yes.
So it becomes incredibly important, and we mentioned earlier that our users become potential points of entry into our systems, and we spend a lot of time on the firewall and the network and all of these tools and monitoring devices, and it really takes one user to plug something in or give away a password. So absolutely, I think user education is key. There are a number of tools, and we can definitely assist with some of the tooling around user education, whether that's through spoof phishing attacks or there are a number of ways that we can train up those users. If they then click on that, be sent a training reminder, we can work with you. But yeah, I think user education is as important as any firewall you're going to buy.
100% agree. And there are a lot of people chatting in the chat about that.
Cool.
So awesome. Thanks, David.
Can I jump in again as well?
Yeah, please.
And sorry, they're being quiet there. There seems to be a sentiment or like a feeling that that's been brought up with me before, which is that people that are still relying on on-premise servers or maybe have entirely on-premise servers can't use Azure Active Directory. Is that true, or is that false? And then sort of similar to what Voter was saying, whether or not the Azure Active Directory is the primary AD or the secondary AD, is there best practice, or does it matter if you've got fully in the cloud or not fully in the cloud? What's your position on that?
Yeah, so I think that hybrid will be something that's around for a long time. There are a number of cases where you're absolutely right. Azure AD is not the ideal solution for on-prem servers, and we can go into the reasons, but what we are seeing is a progression from pure on-prem to the hybrid model where we start to replicate into cloud, and that gives you that single sign-on with 365 and the various aspects you have. And then we are seeing some customers and some users start to move entirely into a cloud space. And really what's driving that is the move away from on-prem hardware. So a number of customers who have on-prem hardware, and again, hybrid environments is something that will be around and will be around for many years. So there will always be a case for hybrid. But as we're seeing customers move more and more of their workloads into the cloud, we see them then moving their primary AD onto the cloud AD along with that move. So yeah, it really becomes a progression. I think there's no perfect use case. It's going to come down to what that setup is and what's going to work best. Having all cloud, generally all on-prem is not as common anymore. That's something that is phasing out, although we bump into it once in a while. But the question is really all cloud or hybrid at the moment. Cool. So while you're chatting, I'm going to quickly cover the last one. I'm very aware of the time. So, and this is something that, again, is a trend that we're seeing across the industry and across not only our customer bases, but we're seeing a big drive from Microsoft around going serverless. And what this really means is starting to consume platform as a service as opposed to infrastructure as a service. Now, we always hear these terms and they get thrown around, and there are honestly a million definitions. The way I like to see it is infrastructure as a service is you renting an apartment somewhere. You walk in, there's power, there's water, but there's not much else. You need to put the furniture in, you need to decorate it, move in, make it your own. And what you gain out of that is you can make it incredibly your own. You can decide exactly what the furniture looks like, what's hanging on the walls, what color it is. When we take the then step up to platform as a service, this is when we would look at a hotel room. It serves a specific use case. You want to rock up, have everything ready for you. Your goal is to have a place to sleep and to store your things overnight. So you rock up, you use the hotel room, you leave in the next morning or when your trip's done. So there are two ends of the spectrum here. I think infrastructure gives you incredible flexibility, and especially when we have custom-built applications and a lot of historical code, infrastructure is still the way to go for many of those applications. As we start to standardize and rewrite code, we can look at those platform as a service offerings, which means that you're not worried about the maintenance, the carpet, the aircon. That's all taken care of. In the same way, your operating system, the actual hardware it lives on, a lot of the patching and the admin work that goes on around running a service gets removed on that platform layer. So SQL's a perfect example. We used to buy a box, load Windows, patch Windows, maintain that, get all the settings right, then load SQL, get that set up, get it running. And it was quite a time-consuming exercise to get to the end goal, which is I need a database. Now, when we start to look at platform, we can go and define a lot of those options and say, well, I need a database. It needs to run this fast. It needs this much space. That's what I need. I don't need operating systems and hardware. And those are just underlying layers to my actual requirement. So platform as a service is enabling us to move faster. And then we talk about things like automating and orchestrating. That becomes a lot simpler when you're taking, I hate to say Lego block because it almost oversimplifies, but you are taking those Lego pieces and configuring them in such a way that when you need to scale up and double down on your resources, it's not about setting up new servers and going through that whole pain. You can go and call on those exact resources in the configuration you have them right now, and they can be spun up a lot faster than the traditional infrastructure side. So from a scalability and a overall process point of view, using these components becomes incredibly powerful. And we talk about very close lightning bolt. So we talk about SQL as a service. We talk about a number of different options. And really, as we engage on new cloud solutions, we're seeing more and more that we are driving these into the solution because it solves a lot of the underlying work. And it's not that we are wanting to reduce the reliance on IT teams or on the professionals out there. What I really want to do is let them do the actual work that provides huge value. Patching operating systems is a headache. It doesn't provide value. It's just something we do. You working on the systems and improving them and working with your users, that's what provides value and grows the business. So whenever we talk about platforms or software as a service, it's about taking away headache items and giving that time back to you to perform the functions that are business generating, business improving. Fantastic. And that's my last one. I don't want to hold anyone from whiskey any further, but we will take questions. I think we've taken some along the way. Are there any that have popped up since then?
David, could you, I think there was a question Verta raised about SharePoint lists, but also just it would be nice to see, and maybe you can even just find us Microsoft content, but share some content with us around the practical stuff that you can do with some of the things like Power Automate and SharePoint in particular. We use it internally, you know, like employee onboarding and doing surveys, you know, even as simple as we have a company BRI every 6 weeks, and we do RSVPs and we ask for people to, you know, decide on a theme or what food they like and all that stuff. It's something as simple as that is happening with SharePoint lists, and we use you know, Power Automate to tell the team what the votes were. We use Power BI to do the reports and look at the last 12 months worth of BRIs. It's a silly example, but it's just something now we take for granted. It takes something that maybe took a team you know, a couple of hours a month to do
an Excel spreadsheet, yeah.
And now it takes 2 minutes. So if you can think of any practical examples or nice videos that you could share with us afterwards, I think that sort of, it makes it real. And if you're doing 30 things like that across your business, it saves proper time.
Absolutely. And what I've done is I've got very specific links to each of the topics that I've spoken about. So from the security and the compliance side, I've got live demos on the Defender. There are absolutely the step-by-step processes. So say for employee onboarding, I included that as an example. And again, they become examples of many different processes that you can build out. So absolutely, I've got a list of useful links. And we will share that with everyone just after this, or I can drop it in the chat just now even.
Thank you. I think Verta's got a question. I think he's going to ask if he can come to our BRI, but let's see what the question is.
Yeah, sorry, David. Just a quick thing. Mimecast, obviously,
yes.
I'm not sure, but a lot of corporate companies use Mimecast, and you know, it was totally off topic, but just the attributes from getting attributes from Azure into Mimecast, so I can build a nice email template. Now, currently, people at Tomorrow Foods, they, you know, obviously we don't have a corporate template. There is something, but they make their own thing. It's a total circus. Yep. It's an absolute disaster. And you know, just if you can direct me in Azure, you know, where do I get the parameter for, you know, getting the Azure, like I want the name, I want the surname, cell phone number, whatever. I mean, I'm struggling to get that in Azure. So so where do I go to get, if I want the surname, I mean, what is the correct syntax to get that attribute into Mimecast so I can build a proper template, the email signature?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a specific Azure AD API, which I don't know if that's what you're calling or if you're using other scripting. The AD API becomes very useful in fetching information from the existing AD. I can definitely share some information with you around that and around what it can do.
Right, we can talk. There's my email address. Well, you know, it's just cosmetics, but it just
but it's important.
you want to have a professional look when it comes to your emails, and currently it's
100%.
absolute circus.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I believe, and I'm more the Azure guy than the 365 guy, but I believe there is also functionality in 365. So we'll get some of those pros to look at that as an option as well.
Yeah, so James has just posted something in there, and Voter, I can relate. We actually also use a third-party tool for all of our signatures and pulling that information from AD. Melissa, can you please remind?
Code 2.
Code 2.
That's what we use. Yeah, I love it. It's really easy and super user-friendly.
And quite cheap. So we did not like using Mimecast, Voter. We're a big fan of Mimecast, and we use it all over the place. But for signatures and the type of functionality you're talking about, we found it was much better to use a third-party product. We've been through 3 or 4 of them, and Code 2 is the best one we've used.
Is that integrated in Azure directly? I mean, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, through Azure, everything's picked up from AD.
Okay, Code 2. Cool. We'll have a chat about that. Looks interesting.
Yeah. Check it out. Good question. Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else got anything? I think Nico.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, and it might be a dumb question. I haven't really read up on it in quite a while, but I remember back in, I think, 2010 or 2009, there was I can say it was launched that you can use, and I don't know if this is your forte, Azure's Kubernetes or Kubernetics, whatever you want to say, with Ruby on Rails, and all those different more open source software with Azure Kubernetes. Is that still the case? Is it still open to use? Because currently we are using, or with project that's coming up, we are going to be using GCP with Kubernetes, but I was just wondering maybe if Azure, since the client already has all the 365 packages, that might be something to save money rather than doing GCP with Kubernetes, to use Azure with Kubernetes, since we're using Ruby on Rails.
I would have to check that specific one, but they are incredibly open, and they also have some phenomenal platform as a service offerings around the Kubernetes deployments. So I believe it is, but let me check the specific one for you, and we'll come back to you.
Okay.
But yeah, Kubernetes on Azure is an incredibly powerful platform, so definitely worth investigating.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
And then Devin, you have your hand up.
Hi there. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for letting me talk, I suppose. I just have a quick question. I know I know you're more on the Azure side, and there's a lot of guys in here that. Sorry.
I said I'll try.
Oh yeah, sure. I know, but there's a lot of guys in here that would probably also give some feedback. I mean, using Teams as perhaps your PBX system is something that was recently perhaps brought up to me, and I was just wondering, you guys, in your opinion, think it be financially viable? Has anyone had experience with that, basically?
Yeah, absolutely. So Teams phone system and Teams PBX is especially if you've already invested in your 365 licensing. For a number of those licenses, it's already covered. If not, it's an add-on that is not wildly expensive compared to a lot of the hosted PBX options that would be alternative. And again, I think one of the big values to it is that it reduces the interfaces that your users have to interact with.
Yeah, that's one of the goals.
They've got their business phone on their cell phone through the Teams app. They've got it on their desktop. They've got it wherever they are. I know that sort of third-party VoIP dialers on phones are notoriously interesting to keep operating smoothly, where having that Teams calling native on your phone through the app, included in a lot of the licensing, it really is not only financially viable, but also from a user experience and value to the business point of view, an incredibly viable option. And also what we've found the combination of voice and Teams does is it eliminates a lot of in-company and inter-branch calling, which depending on the setup of the organization can be quite a big whack of costs.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, another very interesting aspect to consider in combining your overall communication and collaboration tooling.
Yeah, I'm very happy to add to that as well, Devin. First of all, in terms of what David's referring to with the user experience, we as an organization swapped over onto Teams Voice during COVID, right at the beginning of COVID. And as you guys, everyone in this room is aware of, how people hate change, and your users, depending on how tech savvy they are, hate it or just really don't like it. But no one loves change. And we flicked the switch on Teams Voice, and I have never ever seen a migration work like that. Everyone literally started using it, and we didn't get any complaints. In fact, half of our organization was a bit slower to move, and all of them wanted to be on Teams Voice because it was so convenient. The other thing around costs and comparing costs is something that we've noticed. It's something to be aware of, is that it's such a different model that you need to make sure that you're really doing a sort of apples with apples comparison, because with a lot of PABXs or hosted PABXs, there's often either a once-off cost if you're buying a PABX, God forbid, or a monthly fee when you're paying for access to a hosted PABX. That fee disappears completely with Teams Voice. All of the fee just becomes a per user per month fee. You're paying for a Teams license if you don't have one built in, and you're paying probably a fee to break out to a voice provider, and then obviously you've got your handsets and that sort of thing. So it's a different type of commercial model, but 9 times out of 10 it is actually cheaper. And a lot of people, when they first look at it, because they're not doing it in the right way, they say, oh, it's much more expensive, and it really isn't. So that is something we're doing a lot of at the moment. So that is, and in fact, I regret we should have made that one of the hidden powers of Microsoft 365, because tons of people still have no idea you can use Teams as a genuine replacement for telephony. And like I said, we did it 2 years ago. We have not looked back once, like never. We have not lost a single bit of functionality, and everything has been positive, basically. So I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that, or if we've got any customers in the room that have actually made that transition, so that it doesn't just sound like me blowing our horn.
I think, Colin, I can add to that. And from what we've seen over the past 2 years on the sales front is, migrating away from the traditional hosted PBX or on-prem PBX, the biggest part of it that we've seen is the cost savings. So the cost savings was a major factor. And I think just the ability for everyone to just work remotely and have the app on your phone and accessible whenever you want, as well as you have an outgoing number. So it's not your cell phone number that pops up on the CLI. It is, a Teams non-geo number that pops up. So it looks like a work number that's coming from your cell phone. It becomes an extended version of your desk phone. So that, just completes that whole cycle from a hosted PBX migration to a Teams platform.
No, thank you guys so much. I mean, it definitely gives me some hope.
and sorry, Devin, just one last thing, which I just forgot to mention. We can gladly run a POC at no charge fee whenever you need. It takes our guys 10 minutes at tops to spin it up.
Okay. Yeah, I think I was contacted. So yeah, definitely something I'll be looking through. But yeah, thank you so much. Quite excited about that.
Can we strike the 10 minutes from the record? Can we undo that in the recording? But
I'm going to hold you to it. It's fine.
My job is to sell it, not to implement it.
Yeah, great, Cons. Well,
support guys are not here.
But jokes aside, we'd love to do a POC.
Yeah, we do.
It's actually, it goes back to the building trust thing. We've got to sort of put our money where our mouth is. We've got to prove that this stuff works and that we know how to implement it. So we're happy to do that at our risk, and for you guys to test it out and make sure that it works. Voice quality, voter. You know the drill. Activity is important. Well, all of the usual things are important. It's no different from in fact, we've actually seen an improvement everyone was teasing me. I'm in Cape Town, and we've got I can't drive anywhere without moving from 3G to 4G to LTE to Edge. It's a disaster. Having a normal phone call is basically impossible for me if I'm driving. WhatsApp is a little bit better, and believe it or not, Teams voice is the best. Like that's the way I can have a conversation and drive across Cape Town. So it's as always dependent on the connectivity and the throughput and the latency and all of those things. But it's been a brilliant experience, and it's improving all the time. There's a whole bunch of work being done by Microsoft and all of the voice providers to make it flawless, basically. In my opinion, I really say this very, very strongly. I think Teams voice is gonna change the telecoms industry fundamentally. I actually don't know how it hasn't happened already. It's like I think PABXs and VoIP are a thing of the past. Anyone else? Good questions, good comments.
I just wanted to add on the quality side, there are some phenomenal tools and reporting built into the Teams service that allow you to track that quality and experience with your users over time. So if you are having issues, it's easier to resolve with actual data behind it.
Yeah, a very, very good point, which wasn't available with most of the other services out there. So, previously, if you had quality issues, you would just try and, people would run speed tests and hope for the best. With a properly set up Teams voice solution, like you've got really, really detailed reporting, granular reporting on what's going wrong and where. I think we might want to start tying up. I think we're under a little bit of time constraint. We should move to the whiskey part of the evening. If Sean hasn't fallen asleep during all of this IT stuff.
I'm still here.
No, he's still there. Fantastic. Thank you. Any other last little important questions or comments from anyone? Cool. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. That was great. Good interaction. And David, thank you so much. That was brilliant. And David's very good about sort of following up on things. So I know there were a couple of questions, and he's going to get back to us. I guarantee you he will, and I look forward to that. Sean, you didn't need to raise your hand. I'm going to hand over to you, I promise. All yours.
Okay, cool. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for having us at your event. This is the entertaining side of the evening, I guess. Not that your speeches weren't entertaining, but I must say I learned a lot. And it's so interesting because during COVID, we used to do a lot of these virtual tastings with all sorts of different companies, and how much knowledge I've gained from various IT companies and insurance companies. It's actually really cool. So just before we get going, I know that all of you would have received a box, and there's a lot going on in that box. And I just want to make sure that before we kick into the tasting, we have everything set out in front of us correctly and that we're all on the same page. So the first thing would be to unbox this box if you haven't already. And in here are 6 samples. Right, just little sample vials that look like this. And at the back of the box is a tasting mat that I need you to unfold. It looks like this. And this is going to allow us to keep a sense of order. As you can see, there's numbered mats, or this is a numbered mat. And while I'm busy doing the intro, and busy chatting to you about what this tasting is and what it's about, you can sort of do the setup that I've explained. There is a little card inside the box that explains on the back exactly how to set this tasting up. Where things will get a little bit complicated is that we've got a chocolate pairing element in this as well, which isn't exactly explained on the card, and I'm going to explain that to you now. So the idea here is in your box of glassware, you will have 6 of these, what we call Glencairn style glasses. All 6 of those can be placed above the numbers on your mat, 1 to 6. And then obviously we're going to pour each of the vials numbered 1 to 6 in the corresponding glassware, if that makes sense. We need to pre-pour all of the whiskies out so that we can allow them to breathe a little bit and kind of get some oxygen going in here. I'm just seeing some comments here that wives have been into the chocolates. That's okay. The chocolate pairing element of the tasting is not the most important. I think so that I can get going with the whiskey tasting, I'm going to just quickly talk you through where to place the chocolates, because this is the kind of the most confusing point. Some of the chocolates look pretty similar. So in the bottom of your box, you would have had a little Geldof black box. You might need to rip your box open to get to those chocolates. We've kind of dug them in there. The confusing part of these chocolates is that 3 of them look very, very similar. And those are the ones with the little white stripes on the top of them. Some of you may need to stop me if you don't have your chocolates out just yet, but I'm going to just ask you to place each one of these chocolates